Welcome to Life Coaching for Dance Studio Owners. Each week, we talk money, mindset, and self-care to help you live a more peaceful life and lead a more profitable business. Let's get started. Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm going to talk to you today about studio staffing. This is a hot issue in our industry. We all have something to do with studio staffing, whether it's recruiting staff, training them, retaining them, how much to pay them, all the things. And I think it's time that we talk about it. So I'm going to do this as a few different episodes because there is so much to talk about when it comes to staffing. And I want to not necessarily give you an exhaustive list of all those things, but to really be thorough about it. So today I want to talk to you, first of all, about just your relationship with your staff. And the reason why I want to start here is because I find that many of us have an us versus them mentality when it comes to our team members. It's the staff does this, the staff doesn't do this, the staff won't, the staff will. And I'm seeing it a lot, whether it's in, a Zoom call or on webinars, Facebook groups, and people talk about their staff members. And I think that we need to start from a place of like, what is our relationship with our staff? I can say, first of all, what it is and what it isn't. And I'll give you some good examples. So first of all, your staff members are people that you supervise. They are not your friends. Now, even if you employ your friends, or they've become your friends or even family members, remember that the relationship between the business owner and the employees is a supervisor to employee relationship. So many times we get our feelings hurt because we forget that this relationship was built on that foundation, right? We are exchanging their time and talents for pay. And when we get caught up in the details of their personal life, or we get caught up in the details of how they're making us feel, or that text message they sent, or what they said to our husband, then things get really sticky. People start feeling salty and it doesn't go well. So remember that. Remember that you're in a supervisor role. The other thing that is important to remember is that you need to frame your staff in a different light many times. And when I say that, I mean, if you look at your staff solely as you teach class or you work at the front desk, you're forgetting a big piece, and that is that it's now their job to take care of your customers. So what I mean by that is, when we start out as a solopreneur and we are in the beginning stages of our business, we are taking care of customer service, direct program delivery, the cash, the marketing, and all of that. And when you have a team of people now working for you, you have to remember that their job is to take care of your customers and your job is to take care of them. You take care of your staff by developing their skills, by nurturing their innovative ideas, by protecting them from harm, whether it's verbal abuse, emotional abuse, whether it's workplace environment being safe. Your job is to nurture and love and care for your staff the way you nurture and love and care for those wonderful little dancers in your studio. When you think of your relationship with your staff, it shouldn't be something where it's constantly strife. I talked to someone and she was saying how she was always butting heads with somebody in her studio. Like the office person is just driving her bonkers. And It's very much a long-term relationship that they've built over time, and it's so similar because it's like a family thing. It's almost like mother and child versus boss and office manager. When we take the time to realize that our role with our staff is to nurture and develop them the way that they nurture and develop your customers, then you begin to understand why things are happening the way they're happening. The other thing I like to point out to people and remind us all is that we first need to blame ourselves. Sure, our staff make mistakes, they're human. They're always going to be in that position. Don't get me wrong, when they make a mistake, they make a mistake. But what I want to say is this: when your team messes something up and things aren't going well, you have to remember that they are a product of your development, your training, your systems. If you have not given them the tools to do that, then what do you expect? If we rely on the old adage of it's common sense or they should just know that, then you're leaving a lot to chance. And that is not where you want to be in your studio business, okay? Remember that your staff, just like your students, needs a clear progression of skills. They need a clear progression of skills on how to grow and develop with your company, to learn the basics, to learn the next step, to get more advanced. How do you get from doing a plie to doing a leap? How do you get to those things? You need to do that for your staff members. And when you do that for your staff members, then they have the tools to build on their knowledge and education to take them to the next step. So, perfect example, you have someone who knows how to type. Do they know how to type? Yes. Do they know how to send an email and ensure that there's no typos? Maybe. Until you take the time to show them the systems you want them to follow, to show them how you want them to capture your brand voice in an email, things are going to be however they're going to be. And when that happens, it's hard to get mad at someone if you don't tell them. Again, I have to say, most of the time, it's our fault as business owners if our staff is mucking things up. It is our fault. It could be our fault for lack of training. It could be our fault for lack of follow up. As they say, you can't expect what you don't inspect. If you tell them to do something, but never ever check in on them, you can't blame them. It's easy to forget. There's lots of details. Just because it's top of mind to you doesn't mean it's top of mind to them. And so what I want to do, and my hope for our industry, is that we stop ragging on our staff and talking crap about our staff. What I want to do is that we embrace that relationship with our staff, that we pour into them and give them the same amount of attention that we would our customer in training them, developing them, professional development, ongoing things, especially if they've been with us for 5 or 10 years. Because now you're relying on this whole basis of information that they've developed. And that information includes things that they did under old systems, things that they did with old programs. When was the last time you updated your staff manual, your operations manual, these different guides, these different videos on how to use the software? When was the last time you updated your phone scripts so it matches your current programs and prices? When was the last time you sat down with them and asked, what do you see are trends? What are things that are happening in our business that we need to be aware of and make changes for? One of my favorite things to do with my manager of business operations, so she handles things like the phone calls, placing people from trials into classes, and all of that. I ask her like every 8 weeks, are there any trends that are happening that I need to be aware of? Are we going to need to add a preschool class because things are starting to wait list? And everybody is available, but they can only do Saturday mornings. They can't do Tuesday evening when we do have space, right? Getting that basic level of feedback. I also ask them to share with me what are some things that customers are all having questions about. So, in one case, everybody was getting caught up with trying to book their photo time slot for recital photos. It was just like constantly an issue. They weren't able to open it in the Safari browser on their iPhone. People were in Chrome, but there was like weird things. Some people couldn't complete checkout. There was something funky going on with their jot form, okay? I was able to get that information and respond to customer needs before the customers even came to me to tell me, because I had a relationship with that person and we wanted to solve it. When we found that we had this huge influx of little kids in our studio, like preschool to like first grade, we had all these new students who had never done a recital. And I said, we're not going to keep doing things the way that we always did, assuming that the majority of the studio has information and knows what to expect from a show. They'll catch up and then just read the guide. I said, no, we're going to do a Facebook Live in our studio Facebook group. And we're going to invite people to attend that and then also to watch the replay if they're not available. But it was our director of operations going through all the steps and stages of the recital so people know what to expect. And all these brand new families were so appreciative and thankful that they got information that they just didn't know, things that they didn't glean from reading our recital packet. Sure, that information was in there, but it's different when you hear it from someone. It's different when you can ask questions live or, have that follow up. And it felt like an open forum where we were open to questions and conversation around it. And it was a dedicated time for it versus, well, just shoot us an email or here, it's on page 49. When we do that to our customers, and more importantly, when we do that to our staff, well, it's in the staff manual. How come you didn't know that you can't take time off on such and such? When we take that attitude, it is not something that builds relationships. Let me say that again. When you take the attitude of, I've said it before, I already told you, I put it in the guide, it's in an email, I already texted you, I already told you, go read it, it's on this page, it's in here, go find it yourself. It's dismissive and it does not build relationship. If we talk about this same dynamic from a relationship of two spouses, if my husband asked me, hey, where's my, I don't know, 2023 tax folder? How might he respond if I say, well, I gave it to you? I told you where it is before. I told you that in March of 2024. Why don't you go look for it? How might that plan out? How might that play out in our relationship? You see, we have to take the time to remember that our staff are people just like us. They have families and priorities, they have work, maybe school. They deserve the respect that we want. This goes back to that golden rule. In fact, I was just discussing this with my son because his idea and interpretation as a young child of the golden rule sounds a lot more like an eye for an eye than the actual golden rule. And here's what I mean. The golden rule is you do to others as you want them to do to you. So, however you want other people to treat you, that's how you will treat them. If you want people to be understanding and compassionate and appreciate that you've got a business, a family, a child, then you treat them with that same respect. If you want your employees to respect you and your time and the fact that you're running a business and you're trying to make payroll and you're doing all these things, you're keeping them employed. You're running your household at home. You're taking care of things like the mortgage and the car payments and all that stuff. And you want some appreciation and respect, then you need to respect the fact that your staff oftentimes are working part-time. Their work at the studio could be a second job. They also have a family. They also are working on that master's degree. They also are trying to afford groceries and their car payment and all these other things. And they don't need one more stressor in their life because they're just trying to make ends meet. You see, we have to remember the human side of our relationship with our employees. It's easy to blame them for problems or for forgetting or for screwing something up. But it's hard to realize that we could be part of the problem, that we didn't actually follow up with them, that we didn't check in after that meeting, that we didn't ask to see reports before they were actually due, that we didn't inspect the costume order before it got placed. It's harder to accept that sometimes we're the problem, that sometimes we're the one who neglected to have a meeting with our office manager for 8 months. Sometimes it's our fault for neglecting to talk to the dance teachers about our expectations and these new things you're doing. And you only talk to the teachers that you see when you teach, but the teachers who teach on the days that you're not there, you didn't talk to. You see, it's so easy to just blame someone and dismiss the situation versus working on that relationship. And the reason for that is relationships are really hard. I've always wanted to get into like marriage and family therapy. Now, this is kind of funny. I wanted to do that because I really loved watching the show Frasier with Kelsey Grammer in the 90s and 2000s. I just loved the whole idea of like a radio call-in show where people talk about their things and then he gives suggestions over the phone. Anyway, the thing is, the reason why therapists for marriage and family therapy exist is because relationships are hard. You have flawed people trying to make it work together. You see, none of us is perfect. And so when you put two flawed people together to do something with a common goal, you get issues with communication, with doubts, fears, insecurities, and it makes relationships so hard. And so that's why instead we communicate ineffectively with our staff. They communicate ineffectively back to us, and we get nowhere. So, when we talk about this relationship, I know that there are studio owners out there right now who have a good relationship with their studio staff. Okay? Absolutely. There's people I know out there who love on their staff. They will go crazy. And I want to say bravo to you for working on those relationships. And I also want to say this: when you are in the process of loving your staff, you can go too far. You can go too far and give them more than you should to your own detriment. There was somebody who one time they put in a whole bunch of staff time off. They did like a time off request, and their manager approved all their time off because they wanted to support them. And then they realized, what are we going to do when this person is out? Oh crap, I'm going to have to cover all these hours, or we're going to be in a pinch for this. And the thought of being compassionate went so far as to be to their detriment. Now, when that happens, we have to remember that it's a supervisor and employee relationship. It's not our job to solve all their problems for them or to be their savior. That's not the dynamic of the relationship. Likewise, I once worked at a studio. This is like 25 years ago now. I worked at a studio, and the studio owner, she wanted to just lavish all kinds of gifts and parties on her staff. Okay. So here I was a recent college graduate, and she would give me Vera Bradley bags. She would do like these big, bountiful Christmas parties at her house. She would do all these fancy things. Oh, we're going to do a pool party and this and that. And she gave us all these goodies. Oh, every holiday, like Valentine's, we would get a little pretty purse and things. And we got all these different things. Here's the thing. She never bothered to ask if that stuff that we wanted, cared for, liked, needed, anything. And I remember one conversation I had with her. She said, here it is. And she gave me this gift. And I opened it. I was like, oh. And it was a Vera Bradley And I was like, "Thank you." And she said, "It's a Vera Bradley." And I was like, "Okay, what does that mean?" She was like, "That's a name brand. That's like a good bag." And I said, "Okay, thanks." Now, for me, I didn't know who Vera Bradley was. I didn't care. I thought it was like just a quilted bag. Like, it was not something I wanted. It was lovely, I'm sure, for someone who's into that, but I wasn't into it. And the truth of the matter is that same person, they didn't always pay me on time, or my paycheck would bounce. Um, there was things that just weren't working well, and I saw a lot of problems for me as an employee. And for me, on the surface, it looked like an employer who really cared for and wanted to spoil and do kind things for her staff. And it made her feel good to do these things because it showed that she loved her staff. When what would have made me feel more loved and respected was a paycheck that didn't bounce, was getting paid on time, was having the building unlocked in time so that I could teach my classes. It was basic stuff. And never once in the time that I worked there did I have an employee review to see how I'm doing. Never once when I was there did I have any training for my job. Never once when I was there did I have any sort of development or let's go to a conference or let's get the new book or there was never an all staff meeting. And so the relationship that I had was really lacking. And that's something that I craved. I wanted to know more. I was eager and excited. I had just graduated college. I got my first dance teaching job at a studio, and I just didn't have what I needed. I didn't have the support. I didn't know what the heck to do with a bunch of 3-year-olds who'd much rather cry and pee through their leotard and run around the room. I would have loved support on what the heck to do with them. And what I got was a CD with the music. I needed support and I didn't get it. So it's important to remember that when we have a relationship with our staff, that we need to really focus on what the nature of that relationship is. Supervisor to employee, we are in a relationship where our job is to build up, support, train, appreciate our staff, and to push forward and advance the respect that we would want in return. When we are doing well, we're able to have those difficult conversations, right? I said before, there are studio owners out there that are doing an amazing job, loving and appreciating and caring for their staff. They're able to have those difficult conversations with them because there is an undercurrent of a positive relationship underneath. So when they have to have that awkward conversation about something that happened, it doesn't ruin everything. They don't walk out the door and storm out. They don't quit because they don't want to hear it from you. They stick around and have that hard conversation and you work through it together. Studio owners that are doing this well have staff that recommend to their friends to work at the studio when you're hiring. And sometimes when you're not even hiring, they're like, "Hey, I have a friend who would love to be a part of the studio. If you ever have openings, they would be interested." Studio owners that are doing well have staff that would give anything to help out that owner because they know that owner cares for them. They choose to be loyal to your studio and they speak up and tell you before they go work for the person across the street or around the corner because they honor the relationship and care about what you're doing for them and with them. So, that, my friends, is how I'm going to start our series on studio staffing. And if you want to learn more, you want to take this information, learn how to digest it and apply it, I'm going to share with you my studio staffing success course. I worked with my friends at Revolution Dancewear to develop this course specifically for dance studio owners so that you can learn the ins and outs from recruiting, getting job descriptions together, hiring, training, screening staff, how to appreciate them, how to pay them accordingly. So, to get the course, you're going to head to learn.revolutiondance.com and you're going to navigate to the Studio Staffing Success course. Use offer code staffing50 to save $50 on my Studio Staffing Success course. Again, that's learn.revolution.com and the code is staffing50 to save $50. Friends, I know that staffing can be the thorn in our side at times. And it seems like a tough pill to swallow when I say that sometimes we are the problem. But I know that when you do the work to really think through all of the systems and processes that you have or don't have and what might be missing, it becomes easier to understand, digest, and make real change in your business. I wish you all the best. Take care. Be well. Hey there, it's Ginger. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss another episode, and leave us a review and a rating so that more people can listen and enjoy as well. Thank you so much.